Before we begin, welcome to Still Missing. We dig into the world's most haunting, unsolved cases. New episodes every week. Subscribe so you don't miss a single case. On August 20th, 1966, a young boy flying a kite on Vintom Hill in Niteroi, Brazil, made a discovery that would become one of the most bizarre, unsolved cases in South American history. At the top of the hill, in a patch of wild grass, he found the bodies of two men lying side by side. They were wearing formal suits and ties, as if dressed for a business meeting. But over their eyes, each man wore a crudely made mask fashioned from lead, the kind of heavy metal used to shield against radiation. Beside them lay a small notebook. Inside were handwritten instructions that read 1630B at the agreed place. 1830 swallow capsules. After effect, sit quietly and wait for the signal mask. No capsules were found at the scene. No cause of death was immediately apparent. There were no signs of violence, no obvious injuries, and no indication of what had killed them. The two men were identified as Manuel Pereira da Cruz, age 32, and Miguel Jose Viana, age 34. Both were electronic technicians from the nearby city of Campos dos Goitacazes. They were not strangers to each other. They were business partners and close friends. And according to people who knew them, they shared an unusual obsession. They were deeply interested in spiritualism, the occult, and making contact with extraterrestrial beings. The investigation began almost immediately, but it was plagued by problems from the start. The bodies were discovered on August 20th, but the police were not notified until the following day because the boy who found them had to walk a considerable distance to reach anyone who could help. By the time investigators arrived at the scene, it had been contaminated by curious onlookers who had trampled the area and possibly moved or taken items from around the bodies. Vintom Hill itself was a significant detail. The hill rises about 300 meters above Niteroi and offers a panoramic, unobstructed view of the sky in all directions. It was not a popular hiking destination. It was isolated, difficult to reach, and had no facilities or paths. For two men in formal suits to climb to the top of this hill was itself unusual. They had clearly chosen the location deliberately, and the sky-facing view seemed to be the reason. The autopsies were badly handled. The local medical examiner's office in Niteroi was understaffed and under-resourced, because the morgue lacked the equipment for a thorough toxicology analysis. No conclusive cause of death was ever determined. The organs were not properly preserved for later testing, and tissue samples were stored incorrectly. By the time more advanced laboratories in Rio de Janeiro could have been consulted, the biological material had degraded beyond usefulness. To this day, no one knows what killed Manuel and Miguel. There were no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, no blunt force trauma, and no signs of strangulation. External examination revealed no injuries at all. Whatever killed them left no visible mark on their bodies. Investigators pieced together the men's final days from witness accounts and receipts. On August 17th, 3 days before their bodies were found, Manuel and Miguel left Campos together and traveled by bus to Niteroi. They told their families they were going to buy supplies for their electronics business. When they arrived in Niteroi, they purchased 2 raincoats from a local shop, which was considered odd given the weather. They then went to a bar, where a waitress later recalled that Miguel seemed nervous and kept checking his watch repeatedly. They also purchased a bottle of water and a small packet at the shop, though the contents of the packet were never identified. At some point during the day, they made their way to Vintom Hill. They were not seen alive again. The lead masks were the most puzzling element of the case. They were simple, improvised eye coverings made from sheets of lead, shaped to fit over the eyes, and held in place by the men's own hands or by resting against their faces. Lead is most commonly associated with radiation shielding. Why would two men make lead masks and wear them on a hilltop? The notebook instructions added to the mystery. The precise times, 1630B, at the agreed place. 1830 swallow capsules, suggested a planned ritual or experiment. The phrase, After effect, sit quietly and wait for the signal mask. Implied they expected something to happen after taking the capsules, and that the masks were part of the protocol. Friends and family members of the two men provided crucial context. Both Manuel and Miguel were active members of a local spiritualist group that blended elements of Brazilian spiritism with more fringe beliefs about alien contact and interdimensional communication. They had been experimenting with what they described as attempts to contact superior spirits, beings they believed existed on higher planes of existence. According to acquaintances, the two men had conducted similar experiments before, involving specific locations believed to have spiritual energy, specific times aligned with astrological events, and the ingestion of psychoactive substances they believed would open their minds to receive communications from these beings. This wasn't the first time such an incident had occurred in Brazil. In a remarkably similar case in 1962, just 4 years earlier, a man named Hermes da Fonseca was found dead on the same Vintum Hill under nearly identical circumstances, wearing a lead mask and formal clothing, with no apparent cause of death. That earlier case received little attention at the time, but its similarities to the 1966 deaths are striking and suggest a pattern of ritualistic behavior connected to the location. Several theories have been proposed over the decades. The most widely discussed is the UFO contact theory. Vintum Hill offered an unobstructed view of the sky, and the men's interest in extraterrestrial contact was well documented. Some researchers believe Manuel and Miguel were attempting to make contact with what they believed were alien beings by ingesting hallucinogenic or psychoactive substances and wearing the lead masks to protect their eyes from a light or energy they expected to see. If the capsules contained a toxic substance, either intentionally or through miscalculation, the men may have poisoned themselves during the ritual. The masks, the formal clothing, the precise timing, and the written instructions all point to a carefully planned ceremony that went fatally wrong. A second theory suggests that the men were victims of a hoax or a scam. Someone they trusted, perhaps a leader within their spiritualist group, may have instructed them to take capsules that were actually poison as part of a fraudulent ritual. The men, believing they were participating in a genuine spiritual experiment, may have willingly swallowed the substance and died without ever suspecting foul play. This theory is supported by the fact that the instructions in the notebook were written in a formal, instructional tone, as if dictated by someone in authority. The third theory is simple accidental poisoning. The men may have ingested a substance they believed to be safe, perhaps a folk remedy, or a homemade, psychoactive compound that turned out to be lethal. Their interest in spiritual experimentation may have led them to try increasingly dangerous substances, culminating in a fatal miscalculation. Without proper toxicology results, this theory can neither be confirmed nor ruled out. A fourth, more mundane theory proposes that the men died of natural causes, perhaps cardiac arrest, brought on by the physical exertion of climbing the steep hill in formal clothing on a warm day. However, this fails to explain the masks, the notebook, the capsules reference, or why both men died simultaneously. The lead masks case has become one of Brazil's most enduring mysteries and a staple of UFO and paranormal literature worldwide. It has been featured in countless documentaries, books, and podcasts. The combination of elements, the formal suits, the crude lead masks, the hilltop location, the cryptic instructions, the missing capsules, and the complete absence of a cause of death creates a mystery that resists any single explanation. What were Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana trying to do on Vintum Hill that evening in August 1966? Were they attempting to contact beings from another world? Were they the victims of a dangerous ritual gone wrong? Were they deceived by someone they trusted? Or did they stumble onto something that we simply don't have the ability to explain? The hill is still there, the view of the sky is still clear, and the question of what happened to the two men in lead masks has never been answered. If you have any information about this case or are familiar with the spiritualist communities of 1960s Brazil, researchers continue to investigate the lead masks case. Next week, Scotland, 1900. A lighthouse on a remote island goes dark. When a relief crew arrives, all 3 keepers have vanished. A meal sits untouched. 1 chair is overturned. The clock has stopped. No bodies were ever found. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse. UFO encounter, poisoned ritual, or 2 men who simply went insane together. What do you think really happened on that hilltop in Brazil? Tell me your theory. The stranger, the better. Every week, we dig into cases the world forgot. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Trust me, you won't want to. This is Still Missing. Some cases never close.